The alien command ship loomed in the night sky, its hull glowing with a cold brilliance that turned the ruined city below into a skeleton of shadows. Its silhouette stretched like a cathedral of metal, every line of its design a sneer at the primitive earthbound world beneath. Inside the command chamber, General Vor surveyed the flickering maps of resistance movements. He spoke in the glacial tones of his species, his voice an instrument of disdain. They hide behind rubble. They aim with sticks. They breathe dust and cling to myths. These snipers, vermin with toys, nothing more. His council hissed in agreement, a chorus of ridicule echoing across the chamber. On Earth, their words would soon be broadcast as propaganda, another reminder that resistance was futile. But they underestimated how words could wound, and how words could ignite. Far below the orbiting flagship, in the shell of an old cinema, Elias Kane sat alone with a rifle across his knees. The screen above him was torn, the floor littered with stale popcorn bags and melted seat cushions, relics of a time when people gathered to laugh at action heroes who never bled. Kane had once been a soldier, decorated, respected, then court-martialed, then forgotten. His name whispered only in fragments, the kind of name that lingered in smoke, never in ink. The Ghost Legionnaire. He was broad-shouldered but gaunt, his beard unkempt, his boots bound with duct tape. A cracked coffee mug sat beside him, the liquid cold hours ago. He still cradled it like a talisman, as if warmth might return if he willed it. His eyes, tired, gray, merciless when they needed to be, rested not on the rifle but on the broken projector. The ghost light no longer ran reels of impossible triumphs. He had become one of them, a myth flickering on broken glass. Footsteps disturbed his sanctuary. He didn't raise the rifle. He already knew the sound of human hesitation. A soldier would have been certain, a looter reckless. This was someone afraid of what they might find. Lena Ward stepped into the dim hall, clutching a recorder as if it could ward off danger. Once, she had been a journalist. Now she was a runner of messages, a collector of names that might otherwise vanish. Her jacket was too thin for the cold, her hands stained with ink and ash. She stopped when she saw him, her breath catching in relief or fear. "They said you were dead," she whispered. Kane didn't look at her. He sipped the dregs of his cold coffee and smirked. "They say a lot of things. Like cats always land on their feet. I saw one bounce once. Survived. Mean little bastard, but not graceful." Lena gave a shaky laugh, more out of nerves and humor. "The resistance needs you." "The resistance," he said, rolling the word on his tongue like bitter smoke. "You mean the scattered dozen with rusted rifles and too much faith in duct tape? They're planning executions. Refugees. Tomorrow at dawn. They'll broadcast it. To prove human snipers are irrelevant. That her voice cracked. That we're obsolete." Kane leaned his head back against the wall. His scarred knuckles tapped idly on the wood of the rifle. The aliens wanted spectacle. They wanted fear. And they would get it unless someone answered. Unless someone gave the world a different story to whisper. "I'm retired," he said finally, though the words sounded hollow even to him. "You're not retired." Lena shot back. "You're hiding. There's a difference." He looked at her then, truly looked, and saw her eyes not the wide optimism of youth but the sharp desperation of someone who understood loss. She had carried names across bombed highways, collected dying words in notebooks, and still found him in this grave of memories. "You don't need me," Kane muttered. "You need a hero. Those are in short supply." Lena stepped closer, recorder shaking in her hand. "I don't need a hero. I need a man who can shoot straight. The rest we'll call legend later." For a long moment, silence filled the cinema. Dust motes drifted like snow in the glow of her lantern. Kane's jaw tightened. He thought of the last mission, the last team he had led. He thought of the screams in his headset, the order he had disobeyed, the men who didn't come back. His court-martial hadn't broken him. Their faces had. He picked up the rifle. The weight was familiar, the metal worn smooth by years of hands and rain. His fingers closed around the grip as naturally as if the weapon had been waiting for him, patient, certain. "You realize," he said, his voice dry as dust, "that I'm not walking back from this one." "None of us are," Lena replied softly. "That's not the point." Kane stood, tall and gaunt, a shadow against the torn screen. His boots crunched on broken glass as he walked past her. The rifle rested against his shoulder, the cracked coffee mug abandoned behind. He didn't look back. Legends never did. Outside, the city breathed fire in the distance. The alien light swept across the horizon, a reminder how small humans looked under glare technology. But small things had teeth. Small things left scars. Kane moved into the fog, his silhouette dissolving into mist. Lena followed, recorder tucked close to her chest. Somewhere rumor took root again, carried on hushed lips. The ghost Legionnaire was alive. And in that rumor, something stirred that had not stirred in years. Hope, you who listen now, who read these words as if they're only a story, remember this. Strength does not come from flawless heroes or invincible machines. It comes from the broken, from the ones who stand even when the world insists they should kneel. They mocked our snipers. They mocked our ghosts. But ghosts have patience. Ghosts endure. And when the hour is darkest, they rise, not to be seen, but to remind us that we were never truly gone. The night air was damp with the scent of oil fires and scorched soil. Kane lay flat against the earth, body pressed into mud that clung like a second skin. His rifle stretched before him, barrel pointing into the abyss where the alien convoy crawled along the horizon. The air thrummed with drone wings, their mechanical whine weaving a net of sound across the hills. Every breath had to be shallow, every blink deliberate. A single misplaced movement would paint him in their scopes. Behind him, Lena crouched low, her recorder dark, her presence a nervous shadow. She had followed him without complaint, though her shaking hands betrayed her fear. She had never been this close to death, not with death looking for her by name. She kept silent, eyes darting between Kane's profile and the alien lights flickering below. The convoy was grotesque in its efficiency. Carriers rolled with mechanical rhythm, their hulls plated with obsidian armor. Mounted on their sides, long-beaked machines scouted for heat signatures. At the center, a raised platform bore cages of trembling civilians, men, women, children, huddled together beneath the floodlights. The loudspeakers flared, hissing static before a voice descended, cold and ceremonial. "Humans of Earth," General Vor's voice declared, amplified so it rippled across the hills. "Behold the fate of those who cling to obsolete traditions. Snipers, marksmen, these words belong to an age of rocks and powder. Your ghosts have no teeth." The civilians cowered. One boy covered his ears. One woman wept openly. Vor's words were a performance, designed to crush spirits before the executions began. Kane's finger rested against the trigger guard. His breath slowed until his heartbeat was a drum he could almost silence. Through a scope, the world narrowed the lines of motion to arcs of light and dark. He saw the executioner, a tall alien draped in ceremonial armor, its weapon raised above a kneeling human. The spectacle was seconds away. Mud caked his skin, cooling him against the sensors sweeping the hillside. He had smeared it across his face, his arms, even his rifle stock, until he resembled nothing more than a shadow pulled from the ground. His body ached, joints stiff, but pain was an old friend. Lena whispered, unable to hold the silence. Can you make the shot?" Kane didn't move. "Depends which shot." "Any shot," she murmured desperately. The first beam of a search drone cut across the ridge. Kane pressed deeper into the earth, body disappearing into its embrace. He let the light pass, let the machine's sensors glance over him. Florida man diet's worse than this, he thought, and almost smiled. Through the scope, the executioner straightened. The civilian stiffened. The loudspeaker boomed again, declaring the death of human irrelevance. Kane's crosshairs kissed the alien's chest. His breath paused. His heart slowed. He pulled the trigger. The shot cracked the night. The alien executioner dropped mid-sentence, body folding like paper. The cages erupted in screams, human voices rising in disbelief and hope. The floodlights pivoted wildly, drones swarming, but Kane was already shifting. Second shot. His rifle barked, and a drone spiraled from the sky, smoke trailing its broken body. Third shot. The loudspeaker shattered, General Vor's voice cutting into silence. For a heartbeat, the night froze. Then chaos erupted. Alien rifles spat streams of plasma into the hills, carving glass into soil. The convoys surged to defensive positions, search beams slicing through the darkness. The civilians ducked, hands covering heads, clinging to one another as the battlefield turned electric with fire. Kane rolled to a new position, sliding across the mud, finding another line of sight before the drones could triangulate. Each shot he fired found its mark. One alien officer struck to the throat, another fallen before it could draw its weapon. His bullets were measured, patient, never wasted. He wasn't just firing rounds. He was orchestrating panic, pulling threads of fear through an army that had thought itself untouchable. Lena's eyes were wide, reflecting the firestorms below. She whispered, her voice breaking, "They can't find you. You're not even real to them." Kane's lips tightened in something close to a smile. Good. The aliens tried everything. Floodlights swept like blades. Sensors pinged the hillside. Plasma fire scorched the ridges into molten rock. But each time they thought they had found him, another soldier fell, another drone shattered, another scream joined the night. The ghost Legionnaire moved with the earth, his rifle of phantoms tongue, his silence more terrifying than their weapons. One alien commander barked orders into a comlink. Kane sighted him through shattered glass and dropped him mid-command. Another raised a shield generator. Kane placed a round to the power core, watching the explosion ripple through their formation. Each kill wasn't just survival. It was punctuation, a sharp reminder that one man, one rifle, still rewrote destiny. The civilians began to stir. Their terror became defiance. Hands gripped cage bars. Whispers that he's here, he's real, the ghost is real, spread to them like wildfire. Hope, fragile and trembling, took its first breath again. General Vor's voice burst through another speaker, trembling with fury. Find him. Find the insect. Tear the hill to ash. But the ash belonged to Kane now. His rifle spoke again, and another officer crumpled. Every shot was a ghost story. Every silence after was heavier than the blast before. Hours seemed to stretch in seconds. The convoy devolved into chaos. Alien discipline shredded by fear of an enemy they couldn't see. In the end, Kane didn't need to kill them all. He needed only to make them believe they were already dying. He lowered his rifle at last, eyes scanning the field. Smoke and flame licked the broken convoy. The cages stood, civilians still alive, staring at the ridge where they thought they had glimpsed him. Lena's recorder shook in her hands as she tried to capture the moment, but her voice was choked by tears. Kane stood slowly, rising from the mud like a figure summoned from another world. For an instant, he was visible against the moonlight, rifle slung across his back, posture straight, unbroken. Drones swirled, but none found him. To the survivors below, he was a myth made flesh. Then the fog swallowed him again, and he was gone. Behind them, silence followed, a silence deeper than victory, a silence where fear had been replaced by belief. You who hear this now, who follow the whisper of myths, understand this. Strength is not the absence of fear, but the decision to aim through it. Legends are not born in triumph. They are carved in the mud, in the stillness of a trigger pulled against despair. Remember that ghosts are not bound by death, nor by the laughter of those who mock them. Ghosts belong to the living who choose to fight, when all reason says surrender. And in the darkest nights, when voices declare you obsolete, rise. Even if unseen, even if forgotten, rise and remind the universe that you are still here. The dawn bled slowly across the horizon, staining the smoke-filled sky with streaks of gold and red. The battlefield lay quiet now. The alien convoy reduced to charred husks and broken machinery. Drones smoldered in craters, their wings twisted like dead insects. The cages stood intact, doors bent open by trembling hands. Survivors wandered out cautiously, faces pale with disbelief, as if stepping from nightmares into a dream they hadn't dared imagine. Elias Kane moved among them like a shadow returned to flesh. His steps were heavy, every joint protesting the hours of stillness and the violence that followed. Mud caked his clothes, blood seeped from a shallow cut on his temple, and his hands shook only when they were empty. But the rifle rested calmly against his shoulder, steady as a heartbeat. Lena Ward followed close, Recorder pressed her chest as if it contained the proof she needed, that what she had seen was real. Her eyes darted from the wreckage to the people, from Kane's silent figure to the hushed words spilling from the survivors. He's real. The ghost is alive. One man. Just one. Kane ignored them. Praise had never mended wounds, never resurrected the dead. He knelt instead beside a young girl who clutched a crayon drawing, paper smudged from days of hiding. She held it up to him with trembling hands. The image was crude. Stick figures, a rifle, a faceless shadow standing between a cage and a monster. Kane stared at it for a long moment, then folded the paper carefully and slid it into the vest pocket over his heart. He said nothing, but the girl's shoulders straightened as if his silence was enough. General Vore, high above in the orbiting flagship, watched reports stream across his consoles. The execution squad had failed. Civilians had survived. Resistance chatter flared across intercepted frequencies, carrying the rumor like wildfire. The ghost Legionnaire walked again. His clawed hands tightened against command rail, fury crackling through his voice. One primitive with iron sights dares humiliate us? No, this would not be endured. But the damage was done. Across Earth, scattered fighters heard the whispers. Farmers hiding rifles beneath barns. Engineers rigging traps in ruined factories. Students scrawling graffiti on crumbled walls. Ghost lives. Ghost fights. The myth was no longer a man. It was a contagion of belief. On the ground, Kane led the refugees through the fog toward safer ruins. He spoke little, conserving words like bullets. Lena filled the silence with a recorder, narrating what she saw, her voice steadier now, as though speaking aloud kept the fear at bay. He doesn't smile, she whispered into the microphone. He doesn't claim victory. He doesn't even ask for thanks. He just keeps walking, as if survival itself is heavier than glory. But they follow him. We all do, because silence, when it refuses to kneel, is louder than any anthem. At the edge of the ruins, Kane finally sat. He leaned his rifle across his knees and let the weight of exhaustion fall over him. The refugees clustered nearby, whispering, eyes always straying to him. Children watched as if he might vanish if they blinked. Lena sat opposite, her pen scratching across a notebook. You've changed them, she said softly. No, Kane answered, voice rough. They changed themselves. I just reminded them they could. Her eyes studied him, searching for something beneath the scars and silence. And you? Did you remind yourself too? Kane didn't respond. His gaze wandered the horizon, where the first full rays of dawn burned through the smoke. He had seen too many dawns like this, false promises that ended in more ash. Yet this one carried a weight he couldn't dismiss. A boy approached, no older than 12, dirt streaked across his face. He held out a battered tin cup filled with water, his hands shaking. Kane accepted it, drank, and passed it back without a word. The boy looked at him as though he had been knighted. Small gestures. Quiet grace. Not parades, not medals. Just dignity returned to those who had nearly forgotten it. Hours passed before the survivors dispersed, finding paths to safer ground. Kane stood once more, rifle slung, and turned to Lena. You'll write it, he said. I'll write it, she agreed. Don't make it bigger than it is. She smiled faintly. It's already bigger than you think. They walked together into the ruins, the silence between them no longer heavy, but companionable. For the first time in years, Kane did not feel like a man waiting to die. He felt like a man still needed, if only until the next dawn. High above, General Vore vowed to set a trap, to drag this human ghost into the open. But Kane knew the aliens had already lost something they couldn't reclaim. They had mocked snipers, mocked ghosts, and in doing so, given humanity a symbol that could not be executed. The sun broke free of the clouds, spilling gold across the shattered city. Kane paused, lifting his eyes to the light. His breath caught not in fear, but in something rarer, recognition. For all the blood and ash, the dawn still came. And you who listen now, who walk your own ruins in silence, take this with you. Strength is not thunder, not spectacle, not the crushing weight of armies. Strength is the refusal to vanish. It is the quiet step forward when the world demands retreat. It is a child's drawing tucked close to a heart that still beats, the offered cup of water, the myth whispered in the dark. They mocked our ghosts, but ghosts linger. They endure because we choose to endure. So when despair tells you you're finished, remember the ghost Legionnaire and rise.